today I wanted to work on this Life-Like F40ph. So while I'm doing that, I'm going to go over the good points and the bad points of it. So the guy that had it before me did quite a job of weathering this. It's not too bad. I'm going to keep it like that. Other than that, it's complete. And you know what? It's so dirty, I bet you it won't even run. So let's go have a look at that. So I put that -8 40C back here just so you can see that there's power on the track. And this one still probably won't run. So that doesn't look too good. But we'll get it going. Let's see if I nudge it. No. Now there's a little bit of light. So it definitely needs to be cleaned. It's got decent detail. I especially like the horn at the top there. Looks really good. So to open these up, there's two notches inside the cab around here that hold the shell together. Just got to pry it apart. Use gravity as your friend. The only thing you gotta look out for is the snowplow in the front here. So once I get my shell loose, then I can bring it out from the back and then wiggle it around my snowplow. And then that's it. So here's the good news of them. It's got a lot of weights. They're really heavy weights that make the locomotive feel realistic. It really does give it some weight. And the worm gears in here are great. And it's an 8-wheel drive, which is also good, but it doesn't have any flywheels. That's one of the bad parts of it. So the motor's fine, the worm gears are fine, and they have little brass bearings, which are really cool. I'm gonna need my screwdriver to remove this, but in here, there's two brass bearings for the worm gear, which are really cool. The bad part of this is only the little gears here. And also, it's wired. It's not a split frame, it's wired just like in the 1950s. So you can't take the trucks off. I'm going to show you that it does run. I tried it before. I'll put it on my test bench there. So the motor is actually good. See, it runs fine. There's just no electricity getting to it from the tracks. So that's what we will be doing. We'll be cleaning the wheels. Now before I go work on the wheels, I'm just going to pop these covers out. There's a little place for your screwdriver to get in there. And these pop right out. There you have your worm gear with the two brass bearings. This is some good stuff. Now to get to the trucks, you can't remove it because they're welded in. I mean, if you have tons of patience, more than me, you can get in there. You just have to push this little pin out with your screwdriver. Push the pin out. You can get in there, unweld them, and then come back later, and after you're done cleaning the wheels, re-weld them again. That takes forever. I mean, if you feel like it, go right ahead. I'm gonna skip that part. So now the truck is loose. You can't remove it because it's wired. But here's what we're gonna do. This little gear falls right out. So that's no problem. We can take this out and clean it. Not a problem. You have to shimmy out the side frames. So you shimmy them out like this. You don't want to break them, obviously, because if you do break them, then you have no more couplers. So I don't know about you guys, but if I can save myself from working on the couplers, that would be great. So you just shimmy this. You shimmy it. You just shimmy it out. You push it in and then shimmy it out so you can remove the side frames without removing those two welds. And then the side frames, it can be cleaned under your tap with some soap and warm water. And then we're going to take the wheels out. Now these wheels, they're pressed on the axle. It's a plastic axle, so it really doesn't take much strength to remove it. But it will help to take your time because they can be broken. So go gently one side at a time. Keep working at it until they come out. It's not a race. So there you go. I'm gonna do the 3 other ones off camera. Now these contact strips, make sure that they're clean. Take your time to clean them if you find you need to. And then the gearbox, it will just split apart now that the wheels are gone. So you can just split it apart and then move it gently over. It stays attached to the locomotive because of the wiring, and then you'll find a bunch of little gears, and these are kind of small. This is actually, I'll say, the bad part of the locomotive. I will say, try to get some light and some focus on this. I would say it's the bad part of the locomotive because they're not as fine as the gear that Kato uses. But it doesn't matter. I'll clean them up and you'll see the locomotive runs much better. The next part is going to be cleaning up the wheels. Now these have to be squeaky clean. This will take time. It will take time to do it, but definitely worth it. That's what makes the difference between running and non-running. So I cleaned everything up. This is what you should have now. I'm gonna put everything back together. Now on my Atlas and Kato, I don't lubricate them, but these can use a little bit. I use a little bit on these. So I'm gonna start with the axles first. That's the first one to go in. And then these little idler ones. There's two kinds of idlers there. There's a bigger one and a smaller one. The bigger one goes to the gear that goes to the worm gear. So it goes in the center there. Just like that. There, and then the smaller idlers, which take power to the front wheel. It is kind of tiny little gears. But for N scale, what are you going to do? Invariably, you're going to have small parts. And then the second axle. So once I'm happy with that, I can put the two halves back together. Well, before I do, I'm going to lubricate the little ends here. All you need is like half a drop. So that too is going to take a little bit of patience to do it. But it can be done. I've done it before. I'll bring it up closer. See? That wasn't so hard now, was it? Now these contact strips here, it's time to clean them. Make sure they're squeaky clean before you put your wheels back on. So I'll do that off camera. At this point, I'm going to put my wheels back on. And then repeat for the other side. So before I reattach everything, I take this last gear and I stick it back in there. Now you can try your wheels before you do that. Make sure that everything can turn. And put this back. Then that goes up here. And then this little pin here will hold everything together. So I do lubricate this quite a bit liberally. So before you put the pin in, don't forget to put your side frames back on. So you just shimmy them over here. And then over the pin there. And that's it. Put the gear back in. And then the shaft will go back in. So I'll finish this off camera. So I'm going to share another little tip with you. If you find your gear doesn't line up properly in there, I don't know how easy it's going to be to see it. If it doesn't line up properly, you can move the wheels back and forth, and this will line up your gear. So you can finish putting the shaft back in. It's just something I learned over the years. Here we go, looking good. Almost done. You can turn the drive shaft. That'll tell you if your gears are, how your gears are feeling. Feels pretty good. I'll also put just a dab of lubrication on here between the brass bearing and the worm gear. And I'll do the front side off of camera. Well, that wasn't too hard now, was it? So before I put my shell back on, I'm going to go test it on the track. If it's not running to my taste, I can still get back in there. I don't have to take the shell back out again. So there, that looks pretty good. Oh, look at that. Looks like it's gonna run. That looks pretty good to me. So all that's left to do is put the shell back on. Don't forget about the snowplow. just right over here. Nice and easy. And now it's time to run some trains. Well, I hope this video was useful to you. See you soon.